All right, so I got these new soldering irons. There we go. So these are new soldering irons, and one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to tin them. You're going to put a little solder on them and let the solder kind of soak in. Oh, it's in standby mode. Wake up. There it goes. So this solder is lead-free. Back in the olden times, there was lead in solder, which you know, was not great, but for your health. So you're going to put a little on here and just kind of let it burn for a little bit, and this is going to kind of seasons the tip a little bit. Okay, call it tinning the tip. And then once you got that, you're going to kind of scrape it in this this little sponge thing, this little brass sponge. Kind of clean it off. And then we'll do another little round of it. I have to tip this down, all right. There we go. Not that far. There we go. All right, so I'll let that go for a little bit. And all right, so now that's there. I'm going to let that kind of sit. And now we can get to work on the cable. So, first thing you're going to want to do is put on the boot. If you forget to do this before you start soldering, you will have to cut it off and do it again no matter how good it is. So you're going to slide this on like that. Okay? Get that on there. Okay, and just shove it down and give a foot or so, and then we can work on this. So I'm going to stick it there for now. What I'm going to do is I first need to strip this outer jacket off. This cable is from a company called Belden, which makes really good cable. It's called Belden 8412. It's my favorite kind of cable to use for microphones because it's really durable. So what you're going to do is you got to cut about 1 inch off of this outer jacket. And generally speaking, I mean, I do have my little ruler here, and we can see that 1 inch is about that much. Okay. Now I don't know about the size of your fingers, but mine, that's about 1 inch between those two knuckles. So that's kind of what I use as my guide for getting 1 inch off of here. So I kind of say, all right, about there. Now here's what you're going to do. You're going to get I use my pocket knife, but you might have that little mat knife, box cutter thing, or whatever you decide to do, but some kind of blade, and you're going to lay it on here. And notice I've got the blade underneath the wire, okay? And I'm just going to kind of twist it like this, very lightly, to score the outside of that. I'm not pushing really hard. I literally just scored it. See how I've got that little line there now? So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to like turn that around. I'm going to bend it a little bit so I can see that thing. And now I'm going to just kind of go in really lightly, go across there until you see how it's split open there? And now I see the shiny stuff on the inside. That's when you stop. Don't cut anymore. You don't want to cut that wire inside. Okay, and then I'll fold it again, and because we're putting it on that surface tension so tight, it will split open without a whole lot of work. You just turn it over, and use your little knife to, I'm not even really cutting, and I'm not even really pushing. I'm just kind of like letting the weight of the knife rest on it while it's under that tension. And that splits open. Okay. Just want to go until you can see it all the way around. Perfect. All right. And now I got to pull this off. might come off in a couple of pieces, and that's all right. We're throwing this away anyway, so you're gonna. Okay, so I got the thing out, and now you'll see there's this little string here, that and the little paper, and we're gonna cut that off. And this is where your little scissors come into play. Now again, I just have little tiny scissors on my knife here. I use those. Any small scissors will do. But as you can see, if the scissors are too big, they're going to be a little awkward for the small of the thing that we're cutting here. So depending on what size of scissors you ended up with, they may not work as well. So hopefully you got small ones. If you didn't, you can take it back. Okay, so now we're left with this. Now what this is this is called the braided shield. So this is a bunch of actual wire, and I believe this is tinned copper, I'm pretty sure, which means it'll take solder really well. But this is, it's a lot of little wires that are braided together. And that's really important because this is what shields the wires inside from all of the electromagnetic interference that our audio cables are really susceptible to. So you want this to be intact, and that's why I was like, don't cut into that, because you want that. We're going to use that. And we want to turn this braid into a wire of its own. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to just kind of do this until I can get a little bit of that wire sticking out. And then I'm going to grab it and pull it away from the edge here. Because underneath of this wire is some string that I need to get rid of. There, okay? I want to separate the string from the braided wire. Wiggle that if it's not. So once I got that separate, then I'm going to hold on to the string and separate that out there. Now, this is where I need my pick. Okay? Well, that pick I told you to get, this is where this comes into play. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use this pick to pull apart this wire. And we're going to separate it, we're going to unbraid it, basically. And I'm going to keep hanging on to the string on the inside because I don't want that to get mixed up with the wire. If you let go of it and the string gets mixed up, it's fine. There's a way to recover from that. You don't have to start over. But if you can avoid that, that is desirable. So I'm just going to go in and pick this all. And you can be rough. You don't have to be delicate. I mean, this is pretty strong wire here. It's not going to, it's probably not going to break on you. Every once in a while it will, but very rarely. So you see how I'm doing that? Just kind of digging in here and unbraiding all that. And I don't want to really leave anything braided above where I've stripped that outer edge. I want to make sure I've got it all. Okay? And once I think I've got it all, then I want to work it here, and I want to gather it all around to one side. Like that. See that? If I do something and you don't understand what I just did, just stop me. I'm just going to keep going unless you stop me. But I'll never be annoyed if you stop me. Okay? So I'm just going to kind of...
So the braided part is still just the outer layer.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just pick apart that from... And then the like...
Yeah, we'll deal with the string in a minute. Yep, so we're leaving that. But we're just pulling that braided wire that we unpicked. We're just gathering it all to one side. And you're going to straighten it out and kind of tug on it a little bit so that it's all coming around to this one side. And then you're going to twist it. And you want to twist it really, really tight. You want this to look like it's a uniform, solid wire. So you're going to develop some calluses on your fingers for this, okay? Because you should feel it. You should feel that friction. A little bit of pain. Okay? Not a lot of pain, but just a little bit of pain. As you're twisting this, you want it to be really, really tight, okay? And as uniform as you can get it. So you don't want it to be like bulgy or uneven. So I like to kind of pull out as I'm twisting. Twist, pull, twist, pull, twist, pull, and that kind of helps keep it uniform. Okay, now that we've done that, now we can deal with this string. So there's a white wire and a black wire inside of here, and we don't want to cut those off. That's where the sound's going to go. So we need that, but we're going to go in with our little scissors and cut off all this string. The sound doesn't go through the string. The string is just used to give the cable some structure. It's what makes it round. It's just kind of filler. Right. How's this camera working? You guys seeing everything okay?
Yeah.
My first time using this, so.
I'm just looking at the small screen.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so there you go. I'm separating those out. Now, before I do anything with these, I've got to tin this. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick it in my little vise here. And tighten that down. And let's see. And I kind of want to orient this so that this new wire I made, this drain wire, is kind of pointing towards me and down. And now I'm going to take some of this solder and we're gonna tin this thing. And I'm just gonna give the iron a second to heat back up. And by tin it, what I mean is we want to completely saturate this wire with solder. We want to turn it into a solid wire. Okay, and what solder does is when you heat up the wire and touch the solder to it, the solder kind of soaks in. So let's see if it's melting. Okay, good, it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rest this on here, on the drain wire, and then I'm going to start feeding it solder. And as I do, it's going to start soaking into that wire. And then I'm slowly going to drag it down the wire. As it all soaks in. And you kind of got to develop a rhythm here to this. You want to go slow enough that it soaks in evenly, but not so slow that it starts traveling up under the jacket. Because the solder will do that. It'll start climbing back up inside the wire. You don't want that. But when you're done, this should look like it's all filled in and uniform. And there's a test we're going to do in just a second to prove that. But before we do that, now we got to deal with these little wires.
So you want us to take the shielding and make a thing out of it?
Yep. We're going to make a wire out of it. That's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so now I got to deal with the white wire and the black wire, okay? And we're basically going to strip half of the jacket off of each of these, okay? Now, does anybody have, I've got the fun strippers. Does anybody have the less fun strippers that I can borrow? I want to show you how each of them are. Okay, perfect, yes, I'll use yours. Okay, so let me do this. I'll do this one first. So this is 22 gauge wire. And the gauge just refers to how thick the wire is. And if you look at your stripper here, it's labeled for solid wire versus stranded wire. So if you're trying to figure out which hole to use, you say, well, am I doing solid wire or stranded wire? Well, these are stranded, okay? So, and I said it's 22 gauge, so the 22 for the stranded is the smallest hole, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'll do the black one. This one I gotta unlock this thing. There you go. Oh, you got the spring loaded ones. These are fun because they hop back. Okay. All right, here we go. So I'm gonna just go about halfway. I'm gonna stick it in that hole. What am I stuck on? There we go. Okay, so I'm about halfway, and then I'm just gonna kind of wiggle my wrist a little bit and then pop it off. Okay? So you clamp it in the hole, give it a little wiggle, and then take it off. And go quick. Like it's not a slow thing, it's a boom, jack, just yank it right off. All right? There you go. Now, if you have the fun ones, let me show you how that works. So, it's the same deal. We're going to position in between here where we want it to be. And right there, and we just kind of go, and it comes off. So these are a little bit more expensive, but save you a lot of time, and they're a lot more fun. And I've had these for 23 years. But either way will work. You've just seen, both work, right? Both get the jacket off the wire. It's just a matter of like how exciting of an experience it is. I think the auto stripper's a little exciting, so I like it. Because it's always impressive. Like I'm never not impressed by how slick that is. And I've been using these for 23 years. I've done thousands and thousands of these. So we're going to twist these two, again, really tight. They're already, twisted a little bit, but we're just going to reconfirm that, and then we're going to stick it back in the vise like we did before, and now we're going to tin these wires. These will be a little bit easier. Seems like I have to kind of push the up button when I'm ready to do this because it's going to cool it off when I'm not using it to save energy. You kind of got to wait a second with this iron. And once it gets hot enough, I'll just check it, make sure it'll melt solder. Okay, good, there we go. And then here we go. Same deal. I'm just gonna feed it along there. Slow enough that it soaks in.
So are you putting the soldering iron on the cable?
Yeah, because you want to heat up the wire. Because when the wire gets hot, then it will accept the solder. Okay?
So you put the actual the solder on top and
Yeah, so I'm putting a little solder on the iron, and I'm resting the iron underneath the wire, letting the wire heat up, and then I start feeding it solder as I drag it along the wire.
So you're feeding it to the top of the wire?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it soaks in. And every time you do this, you just want to clean that little tip, because if you let that solder rest on there, it can sometimes mess up your tip. Okay? You'll practice this. You'll get better at it, right? You'll get the hang of it when you try to do it. But again, you want to go fast enough that it doesn't glob up or try to walk up the cable, but slow enough that it soaks in. There's a rhythm to that, okay? You'll find it. Today, all we're going to do is this. We're not actually going to put it on the cable or on the connector. All right, so now we got to get it ready to stick it on the connector. So what I'm going to do is I want this drain wire to be the shortest one because I want it to carry all the strain because it's the thickest wire. It's the strongest wire. So if anyone pulls on this cable, I want the biggest wire to be the one that's taking all the strain. I don't want the tiny wire to be the one that's taking all that strain because it's not as strong. Okay? So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to cut off these little ones, and I'm going to cut about a little more than half of this off. About like that. See how short that is? Really, really short. Okay, we don't want to, because we want that jacket to be touching the edge of the connector look. Okay, and then I'm going to cut this drain wire so it's just a little bit shorter. Okay, so right about there. See that now? Now look at this wire. Look at that. Look how that's solid on the inside. That's because the solder soaked all the way through. This is now basically functionally a solid core wire now, which is why it's going to be so strong. And that's going to take all the strain, and we're going to connect this to pin 1 on the connector. And pin 1 on the connector is what goes to ground. And so all of this, that braided shield is going to collect all that garbage in the air, all that interference, and dump it into the ground through this really thick wire. Okay?
Sorry, did you just cut the wire? You didn't like wrap or anything?
Nope, I just cut it. Yep. And you want the drain wire to be just a little bit shorter.
You're putting it the strain wire or drain wire?
Drain wire.
Drain wire.
Drain, because it like literally
It
you know,
drains it out.
it
Okay.
drains the garbage down into the ground, right? Okay? So this is what you're going to do today, is this much. Okay?